24. In the years between then and the writing of this memoir, I've thought remarkably little about those 2 days in September, at least consciously. The associations the memories bring to the surface are as unpleasant as week-old river corpses brought to the surface by cannon fire. As a result, I never really questioned our decision to walk down the tracks. Put another way, I've wondered sometimes about what we had decided to do, but never how we did it. But now a much simpler scenario comes to mind. I'm confident that if the idea had come up, it would have been shot down. Walking down the tracks would have seemed neater, bosser, as we said then. But if the idea had come up and hadn't been shot down in flames, none of the things which occurred later would have happened. Maybe Chris and Teddy and Vern would even be alive today. No, they didn't die in the woods or on the railroad tracks. Nobody dies in this story except some bloodsuckers and Ray Brower. And if you want to be completely fair about it, he was dead before it even started. But it is true that of the 4 of us who flipped coins to see who would go down to the Florida market to get supplies, only the one who actually went is still alive. The Ancient Mariner at 34, with you, gentle reader, in the role of wedding guest. At this point, shouldn't you flip to the jacket photo to see if my eye holdeth you in its spell? If you sense a certain flipness on my part, you're right. But maybe I have cause. At an age when all 4 of us would be considered too young and immature to be president, 3 of us are dead. And if small events really do echo up larger and larger through time, yes, maybe if we had done the simple thing and simply hitched into Harlow, they would still be alive today. We could have hooked a ride all the way up Route 7 to the Shiloh Church, which stood at the intersection of the highway and the back Harlow Road, at least until 1967, when it was leveled by a fire attributed to a tramp's smoldering cigarette butt. With reasonable luck, we could have gotten to where the body was by sundown of the previous day. But the idea wouldn't have lived. It wouldn't have been shot down with tightly buttressed arguments and debating society rhetoric, but with grunts and scowls and farts and raised middle fingers. The verbal part of the discussion would have been carried forward with such trenchant and sparkling contributions as "fuck no" and "that sucks," and that old reliable standby, "Did your mother have any kids that lived?" Unspoken, maybe it was too fundamental to be spoken, was the idea that this was a big thing. It wasn't screwing around with firecrackers or trying to look through the knothole in the back of the girls' privy at Harrison State Park. This was something on a par with getting laid for the first time, or going into the army, or buying your first bottle of legal liquor, just bopping into that state store if you can dig it, selecting a bottle of good scotch, showing the clerk your draft card and driver's license, then walking out with a grin on your face and that brown bag in your hand, member of a club with just a few more rights and privileges than our old treehouse with a tin roof. There's a high ritual to all fundamental events. The rites of passage, the magic corridor where the change happens, buying the condoms, standing before the minister, raising your hand and taking the oath, or, if you please, walking down the railroad tracks to meet a fellow your own age halfway, the same as I'd walk halfway over to Pine Street to meet Chris if he was coming over to my house, or the way Teddy would walk halfway down Gate Street to meet me if I was going to his. It seemed right to do it this way, because the rite of passage is a magic corridor, and so we always provide an aisle. It's what you walk down when you get married, what they carry you down when you get buried. Our corridor was those twin rails, and we walked between them, just hopping along toward whatever this was supposed to mean. You don't hitchhike your way to a thing like that, maybe, and maybe we thought it was also right that it should have turned out to be harder than we had expected. Events surrounding our hike had turned it into what we had suspected it was all along. Serious business. What we didn't know as we walked around the bluffs was that Billy Tessio, Charlie Hogan, Jack Mudgett, Norman Fuzzy Brackowitz, Vince Desjardins, Chris's older brother Eyeball, and Ace Merrill himself were all on their way to take a look at the body themselves. In a weird kind of way, Ray Brower had become famous, and our secret had turned into a regular road show. They were piling into Ace's chopped and channeled 52 Ford and Vince's pink 54 Studebaker even as we started on the last leg of our trip. Billy and Charlie had managed to keep their enormous secret for just about 36 hours. Then Charlie spilled it to Ace while they were shooting pool, and Billy had spilled it to Jack Mudgett while they were fishing for steelies from the Boom Road Bridge. Both Ace and Jack had sworn solemnly on their mothers' names to keep the secret, and that was how everybody in their gang knew about it by noon. Guess you could tell what those assholes thought about their mothers. They all congregated down at the pool hall, and Fuzzy Brackowitz advanced a theory, which you have heard before, gentle reader, that they could all become heroes, not to mention instant radio and TV personalities, by discovering the body. All they had to do, Fuzzy maintained, was to take 2 cars with a lot of fishing gear in the trunks. After they found the body, their story would be 100%. "We were just planning to take a few pickerel out of the Royal River, officer. Look what we found." They were burning up the road from Castle Rock to the back Harlow area, just as we started to finally get close.